The film Nightcrawler ends with Lou Bloom standing in front of a room of new hires. The operation's a little bigger now, more cameras, more vans, actual employees on payroll. He's talking to them about teamwork, about growth, about the value that drive their company forward. And we're meant to leave unsettled, because this guy, who's clearly dangerous, just won everything. That's the read most people walk away with. Lou Bloom is broken, he lacks empathy, he's wired wrong, and because of that defect, he was able to exploit an industry that rewards sensationalism. It's a disturbing ending, sure, but there's comfort in that disturbance. If Lou is a monster, the problem is him. It's individual, it's a defect, and it's rare enough that we don't have to worry about it. The system he moves through stays clean. The audience watching his footage stays blameless. He's just an outlier who slipped through. A glitch. And once we accept that, we can file Nightcrawler away as a sharp critique of tabloid journalism and move on. But that reading is completely backwards. The true reading on Nightcrawler is way more horrifying. Lou Bloom lives in Los Angeles. We meet him cutting chain-link fences and stealing scrap metal to sell. He's articulate, clean-cut, and completely alone. He tries to get hired by a scrapyard owner offering to work hard and to learn fast. The owner tells him he doesn't hire thieves. Late one night, Lou stumbles onto a car accident. He watches a freelance camera crew film the wreckage and injured victims up close. He learns they're stringers, people who chase police scanners, film carnage, and sell the footage to local news stations. First one there gets paid. Lou buys a cheap camera and a police scanner. He starts showing up at crime scenes, films what he can, brings the footage to KWLA, the lowest rated morning news station in all of Los Angeles. The news director is Nina Romina. Her show is failing. Her job depends on ratings. She watches Lou's footage, a carjacking victim bleeding out, and buys it. She tells him what works. She wants crime in wealthy neighborhoods. She wants stories with white victims. She wants graphic, emotional, invasive footage that makes people feel like they're watching something they shouldn't see. He hires an assistant, Rick, a young guy who needs money and doesn't have any options. Lou pays him almost nothing and calls it an internship. Says Rick is gaining valuable experience. Lou gets better at the job. He starts arriving before police. He moves things at crime scenes for better shots. He films closer, stays longer, pushes further into private spaces, more than other stringers will. Nina keeps buying. She pays him more. She starts relying on him. Then Lou finds a home invasion in progress. He arrives while the shooters are still inside. He films them leaving. He has their faces, their car, their license plate. He doesn't call the police. He waits. Then he goes inside the house, films the victims stumbling through their home, bleeding, and dying. Gets footage that doesn't just show the crime, it recreates the experience of being there. He brings it to Nina. She knows something's off about how he got this, but the footage is extraordinary, career-making. She pays him more than she's ever paid any other stringer. Ratings spike. Lou withholds the shooter information from police. He tracks the suspect himself. When they surface again weeks later, he's ready. He follows them to a restaurant. They open fire. People die. Lou films everything. Then he calls the police while still filming and follows the suspects into a high-speed chase. Rick is terrified. He wants to stop, but Lou won't. The chase ends in a crash. One shooter is dead. The others stumble out armed. Police are closing in. Lou deliberately positions Rick in the line of fire. Rick is shot and killed. Lou frames it as a tragedy, films Rick's body, sells that footage also. Then he uses what he knows about the earlier home invasion, information he'd withheld, to implicate Joe, his main competitor. Joe gets arrested. The detective investigating the whole mess suspects Lou, but suspicion isn't evidence. Lou's story holds. His footage is legal. He violated no laws anyone can prove. Nina knows what he did, and she's horrified, but she's also committed. Her ratings are up, her job is secure, she stays partnered with him. Final scene. Lou, in a new office, multiple employees, multiple vans. He's giving a speech about company culture. He's not a stringer anymore. He's a CEO. That's what happens. Now here's the story we tell ourselves about it. So the film presents Lou as a sociopath in pretty obvious ways. He manipulates people without feeling any guilt. He treats human suffering as raw material. He has no emotional connections, no moral hesitations, no psychological barriers that would stop him from doing what benefits him. This explains a lot of what we see. Why he speaks in that strange, formal register. He's mimicking human interaction without really understanding it. It's why he doesn't react to violence. He doesn't process empathy the way others do. It's why he can film dying people up close and doesn't really register them as people. The movie gives you plenty of evidence to file him under one neat label. From this angle, Nightcrawler becomes a character study, a portrait of what happens when someone without a conscience finds an industry that rewards exactly what he's willing to do. It's a critique of sensationalist news, sure, but the blame falls on Lou. He's the corrupting force, the rot that entered an imperfect but functional system. Nina is complicit but pressured. The audience is complicit but passive. The market has problems, but those problems are being exploited by someone uniquely equipped to exploit them. Remove Lou, and the system returns to baseline. He's the variable. That explanation fits, it's clean, it revolves, and it's how most people understand the film. But here's what the film never asks. If Lou is so abnormal, so outside of what we'd call normal human behavior, then why does every single door he approaches open for him? Why is there no friction? Nina buys his footage immediately, pays him, asks for more. No one at the station questions how he got it. No legal team reviews it, no ethics panel intervenes. When he arrives at a crime scene before the police, no one stops him. When he crosses police tape, no one arrests him. When he moves evidence, no one notices. When he manipulates Rick with starvation wages and exposure currency, Rick stays, because he has no better options. And that arrangement is legal. When he withholds information from an active murder investigation, he's never charged, because he's not legally required to volunteer information. Every escalation he makes gets rewarded with more money, more access, more leverage. So the question isn't, how did this monster succeed? The question is, what if he's not the exception? What if he's just the one who's willing to follow through? The film's version of Los Angeles runs on one resource, and that's time. A crime happens, the scanner crackles, and the race starts. Headlights hit the pavement, camera rigs come out, and nobody says a word. The first crew to the scene gets the footage. First footage to the station gets aired. First story on the broadcast gets the ratings. Second place gets nothing. There's no payment for effort, no reward for showing up, only for being first. This creates velocity as the baseline requirement for survival. If Lou hesitates at the police tape, another crew crosses it. If he stops to think about whether he shouldn't film a dying woman up close, the moment passes and the footage doesn't exist. If he considers calling the police during a home invasion, the shooters leave and the story is gone. The competitive structure doesn't care about his internal deliberation. It only registers results. Every second spent thinking is a second lost to someone who isn't thinking. And here's the shift. No one tells Lou to ignore his conscience. No one says, don't worry about ethics. They don't have to. The structure already removed ethics from the equation by making speed the only variable that determines success. Over time, Lou doesn't choose to stop caring. He just learns that caring costs time. And time costs money. And money determines survival. A lack of ethics aren't punished. In fact, ethics have no agency whatsoever. At least not in a job like this. Nina never instructs Lou to cross a line. Notice instead how she actually operates. She never tells Lou to manipulate a crime scene. She never tells him to get closer to victims. And she never tells him to withhold evidence from police. Instead, after he brings her manipulated footage, she tells him how great it is. After he films victims invasively, she says we need more like this. And when he brings her exclusive information no one else has, she pays him significantly more money. She's not exactly framing herself as corrupt. She's just simply doing her job as a news director who's managing a struggling broadcast with limited resources and vicious competition. Lou is solving a really big problem for her. He's dependable, he delivers, he responds to feedback, he scales with her needs. She's not rewarding evil, she's rewarding results. And Lou learns to speak her language. Notice how he talks. I'm a hard worker. I set high goals, and I've been told that I'm persistent. What if my hire wasn't an intern but an employee with a stake in our success? Or things like, I'm looking to form a mutually beneficial partnership. None of this is original to Lou. He's not creating a worldview, he's absorbing one that already exists and applying it without the usual social padding. From business seminars, online courses, motivational videos, corporate training materials, that language does something specific. It turns people into functions. Rick isn't a person trying to survive on low wages. He's an intern receiving valuable experience and exposure. His desperation becomes an educational opportunity. Nina isn't a person compromising her integrity. She's a client in a professional relationship. Her complicity becomes collaboration. Victims aren't people whose lives just shattered. They're content. They're the story. They're footage. Once you convert human beings into business terminology, you're not cruel anymore. You're now defined as strategic. This language comes preloaded with justification. Hustling sounds admirable. Creating value sounds productive. Maximizing efficiency sounds smart. Lou isn't doing anything the language doesn't already celebrate. He's just removed the irony. Most people say it's not personal, it's business as a way to soften a difficult decision while still feeling some guilt. Lou says it and means it, literally. By the time Rick is dying in the street and Lou is framing the shot, Lou isn't thinking, I killed someone. He's thinking, this is compelling content that our client will value. And Nina gets him, because they speak the same language. So here's what never happens in Nightcrawler. Lou never encounters someone who succeeds by slowing down. There's no competing stringer who built a sustainable career through ethical journalism. There isn't a news director who prioritizes accuracy over ratings and keeps their job. There's no example of someone who hesitates, considers their consequences, and still wins. The film doesn't disprove these possibilities, it just never shows them. Every successful person Lou encounters operates on the same logic he's learning: speed, exclusivity, and whatever it takes to be first. Joe, his main competitor, runs a bigger operation. More employees and better equipment. And how does Joe get to scenes so fast? Well, by being more aggressive than everyone else used to be. By pushing boundaries everyone else used to respect. Lou isn't doing something new. He's just doing it more and doing it better. The film also never shows what happens if Lou refuses. What if he'd called the police during the home invasion? What if he'd paid Rick a living wage? What if he stopped the car chase when Rick begged him to? We don't see those timelines. We don't see whether he could have succeeded by acting differently, whether another path even existed. The absence of this makes his escalation feel more necessary. Not because the film proves it was the only option, but because the film never depicts an alternative. The audience never appears in Nightcrawler, and they're the entire economic foundation. When Lou's footage airs, the graphic home invasion material, the invasive death sequences, the high-speed car chase carnage, what happens? KWLA's ratings increase. Not slightly, significantly. Nina's job becomes secure. The station gains viewers. Advertising revenue increases as well. The business model is validated. And who's watching? Regular people. Commuters having breakfast, families getting ready for work. They're not monsters, they're not sociopaths, they're just people who, when given a choice between a standard traffic report and exclusive footage of a violent crime, choose the crime. Not because they're bad, because it's just more stimulating, more immediate, more emotionally activating. The film is asking something uncomfortable here. What are you actually paying for when you click on the graphic story? When you watch the disturbing footage? When you share the shocking clip? You're not paying with money, you're paying with attention. And in the attention economy, that's the currency that matters most. Every view is a signal. Every click is a vote. Every share is validation. Liu doesn't create demand for his footage, he discovers it. The market was already hungry, he just learned to feed it more efficiently than anyone else. Perhaps it's safe to assume that most of the people watching his footage would be horrified if they knew how he'd got it. They'd condemn his methods, they'd call him a monster, but they'd still watch. Because the transaction is separated from the method. The consumption is distance from the production. They're not paying Liu directly, they're not complicit in the home invasion, they didn't withhold evidence from police, they're just watching the news. But their attention is what makes Nina pay Liu. Their viewership is what makes his footage valuable. Their consumption is what turns tragedy into profit. And then it's over. Liu wins, expands, becomes legitimate. The detective suspects him of doing bad things, but can't really prove anything. Nina stays partnered with him despite knowing what he is. Joe goes to prison for a crime Liu orchestrated. Rick is dead. There's no third act reversal, no karmic punishment, no moral reckoning, just growth. The final image is Liu addressing his new team. Professional setup, clean lighting, corporate language about shared success and company values. He's not a fringe operator anymore. The last thing we really hear isn't a siren, it's Liu's voice. Calm, confident, talking about culture and growth while the room nods along like he's giving a TED Talk. And the film ends there. No epilogue, no consequence, no answer to whether any of this had to happen. And then it goes silent. Because once Liu succeeds, the question stops mattering. Not because it was answered, but because it was absorbed. The universe doesn't need to defend what Liu did, it just needs to reward him. And once he's rewarded, once he's built a stable business with employees and infrastructure and professional legitimacy, his methods become retroactively justified. Not morally, economically. He found a strategy that worked, he ran it, and he worked again. That's the only story the market tells. Nightcrawler doesn't argue that Liu is the future, it just shows him growing, and leaves us sitting with what we just watched. If that reframing changes how you see Nightcrawler, please consider subscribing to our channel. We look at films the way they don't want to be seen. Thank you for watching. As always, until next time, please take care of yourself.